We look at our modern world, we see skyscrapers, smartphones, and grocery stores. We see societies of millions, even billions, and we wonder where we came from. We know our ancestors didn't live like this. For most of human history, for hundreds of thousands of years, we were hunter-gatherers. We lived in small groups, we found our food in the wild. So a question comes up. It's a big question. Can we look at the few hunter-gatherer groups that exist today and learn something about our past? Can the Hadza of Tanzania or the San peoples of the Kalahari Desert be a window into our own deep history? The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's more complicated. It's a yes, but with a lot of caution. It's a powerful tool, but one we can easily misuse. Let's start with the eyes. There are good reasons to think we can learn a lot. These modern foraging societies are the closest living examples we have to the lifestyle that shaped our species. Our bodies, our brains, and many of our social instincts were forged in that world. So when we look at them, we see patterns that challenge our modern assumptions about what is natural for humans. One of the first places people look is diet. The modern Western diet is a mess. It's full of processed sugar, refined grains, and seed oils. It's linked to obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and all sorts of other problems. So we look at a group like the Hadza. They eat a huge variety of foods. They eat meat from hunting, everything from birds to big game like giraffe. They eat honey, a huge source of calories. They eat baobab fruit. They dig for starchy tubers. There is no single paleo diet. It changes with the seasons. It changes based on what's available. What we learn is not a specific list of foods to eat. What we learn is about variety. We learn about fiber. The amount of fiber a Hadza person eats in a day is massive compared to a Westerner. This feeds a completely different gut microbiome. Their guts are full of a diverse range of bacteria. Ours are often much less diverse. This might be a key to understanding many of our modern inflammatory diseases. They don't have these diseases. Heart attacks are basically unknown. Diabetes is not an issue. So, we can learn that the human body is adapted to a varied, high-fiber diet of wild foods. It's adapted to periods of more food and periods of less food. Our modern diet, with its constant supply of high-calorie, low-nutrient food, is a radical departure. We are running ancient hardware on bizarre new software, and it's causing glitches. Then there is social life. We live in huge, anonymous societies. We are often lonely. We are organized in steep hierarchies of wealth and power. How did our ancestors live? We can look at foraging groups for clues. The most striking feature of almost all modern hunter-gatherer societies is their egalitarianism. They are fiercely egalitarian, they don't have chiefs or bosses, they don't accumulate wealth. In fact, showing off or trying to be better than others is actively discouraged. Someone who boasts about their hunting skill will be teased and brought back down to earth. It's a social strategy called demand sharing. If you have something, others have a right to ask for it, and you are expected to give. This prevents any one person from accumulating more than anyone else. It ensures everyone gets something to eat, even a hunter who had a bad day. This tells us something profound. For most of our history, we likely lived in groups that valued cooperation over competition. Our survival depended on sharing, not hoarding. The intense hierarchies we see today, the massive gaps between rich and poor, are a very recent development in the human story. They emerged with agriculture when it became possible to store food and own land. Our brains and social emotions might not be well suited to this new arrangement. Maybe the stress and inequality of modern life are a direct result of this mismatch. We can also learn about how we raise our children. In the West, we have endless debates about the right way to parent. We have sleep training and structured playdates and intensive schooling. We often raise children in isolated nuclear families. When we look at hunter-gatherer childhood, it looks very different. Babies and young children are almost always in physical contact with someone. Not just their mother, they are held, passed around, and cared for by fathers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, and older children. This is called alloparenting or other parenting. It really does take a village. Children learn by watching and doing, not by formal instruction. They spend most of their days in mixed-age playgroups without adult supervision. They learn to be autonomous and responsible from a young age. They learn social skills by navigating their own conflicts and games. There is a deep trust in the child's ability to learn and grow. This model challenges our modern ideas about constant supervision and structured learning. It suggests that children might be hardwired to learn through free play and observation, and that constant adult intervention might not be as necessary as we think. And what about work and health? We think of our ancestors' lives as nasty, brutish, and short. We imagine them working constantly just to survive. The evidence from modern groups paints a different picture. They do work to get food, but it's not a 9 to 5 grind. Anthropologists who have measured their activity found they spend maybe 15 to 20 hours a week on what we would call work. The rest of the time is for leisure, for resting, talking, telling stories, and playing. Their physical activity is also different. They aren't exercising for an hour a day and then sitting in a chair for 8 hours. Their activity is constant and low level, walking, digging, carrying things. This kind of movement seems to be what our bodies are designed for. They have incredible cardiovascular health and don't suffer from the aches and pains of our sedentary lives, even in old age. They get sick, of course. Infections can be deadly. Infant mortality can be high. But if they survive childhood, they are often healthy and active well into old age, without the chronic diseases that plague our societies. This points to the idea of a mismatch. Our bodies are adapted for a certain lifestyle, and our modern lifestyle is so different that it makes us sick. So, it seems clear we can learn a lot. These societies offer a baseline, a reference point for what humans are like outside of the strange context of industrial civilization. They show us that many things we take for granted, like rigid hierarchies, the nuclear family, and chronic disease, are not inevitable parts of the human condition. They are products of our recent history. But now we have to talk about the but. The cautions are huge. Modern hunter-gatherers are not living fossils. They are not Stone Age people perfectly preserved in the modern day. To think of them that way is not just wrong, it's disrespectful. First, they are modern people. Just like us, they are at the end of a long historical timeline. They have their own histories. Their cultures have been changing and adapting for thousands of years. The Hadza of today are not the same as the Hadza of 3,000 years ago, let alone our ancestors of 50,000 years ago. They have their own innovations, their own traditions, their own complex stories. To see them as simple stand-ins for the past is to erase their own history. Second, no hunter-gatherer group today lives in total isolation. They are all connected to the modern world in some way. They trade with their agricultural neighbors. They use metal tools like knives and pots. They might wear t-shirts and shorts they got through trade or from missionaries. Some use cell phones. This contact changes things. It changes their diet, their technology, and their social lives. The Akta in the Philippines hunt with shotguns. The San use metal arrowheads. This isn't a pure, untouched window into the past. It's a complex picture of modern people navigating a changing world. The third and perhaps biggest caution is about the environment. Where do modern hunter-gatherers live? They live in the Kalahari Desert, the Arctic tundra, the dense Congo rainforest, remote islands in the Indian Ocean. These are what anthropologists call marginal environments. They are the places the farmers and herders couldn't use or didn't want. Our ancient ancestors did not live in marginal environments. They lived in the best places. They lived in the rich savannas of Africa, the fertile river valleys of Europe and Asia. These places were full of life, with abundant animals and plants. The strategies you use to survive in a resource-rich savanna are very different from the strategies you need to survive in a harsh desert or a frozen landscape. This is a huge problem. We might be looking at people who are specialized survivors of extreme environments and assuming their behavior is typical for all hunter-gatherers throughout history. For example, the way the Inuit hunt seals on the ice is a brilliant adaptation to the Arctic, but it tells us very little about how our ancestors hunted wildebeest in Africa 100,000 years ago. The plants the sand rely on in the Kalahari are unique to that desert. They don't tell us what plants people ate in Ice Age France. So, we have to be very careful. We are not seeing a perfect replica of the past. We are seeing modern people with their own unique histories who've been pushed into some of the toughest places on Earth. They are survivors and specialists, not a generic template of our ancestors. Given all these problems, how do we move forward? How do we use this information responsibly? The key is to stop looking for a single perfect model of the past. There was no one way to be a hunter-gatherer. The past was just as diverse as the present. People lived in different environments and developed different cultures and technologies. So, instead of seeing modern groups as a direct window, we should see them as a source of possibilities. They help us build models. They broaden our imagination about how humans can live. We can look for common themes that appear across many different hunter-gatherer societies in many different environments. For example, the theme of egalitarianism and sharing is incredibly widespread. We see it in Africa and South America and Asia. This suggests it might be a deep-seated human social strategy, not just an adaptation to one particular environment. The importance of alloparenting and community childcare is another common theme. The incredible knowledge of the local environment, of plants and animals, is universal among these groups. By looking at these broad patterns, we can make better guesses about the past. We can challenge our own biases. Before anthropologists studied these groups, many Western thinkers assumed that humans were naturally selfish, competitive, and hierarchical. They assumed the nuclear family was the universal human unit. The evidence from hunter-gatherer societies shows this is not true. It shows that we have a capacity for deep cooperation, for sharing, and for raising children in a community. They also help us understand our own bodies and health. The mismatch hypothesis is a powerful idea that comes directly from comparing our modern lives to the lives of foragers. It helps us ask better questions about our diets, our exercise habits, and our social needs. It doesn't give us a simple prescription like eat this or do that, but it gives us a framework for understanding why we get sick. It suggests that our health might improve if we could reintroduce some elements of that ancestral lifestyle, more movement, a more diverse diet, stronger social connections, more time in nature. So in the end, the answer is yes, we can learn a tremendous amount from modern hunter-gatherers, but not in the way most people think. We are not looking at a photograph of the past. We are talking to living, breathing modern cousins. They are not our ancestors, but they carry important knowledge and have lifestyles that can teach us about the range of human potential. The most important lesson might be one of humility. Our way of life, the industrial, agricultural, capitalist way, is just one of many. It is very recent and in many ways very strange. For most of our time on this planet, we lived in a profoundly different way. A way that was more connected to nature, more egalitarian, and more communal. These societies are not utopias. Life is hard. People face hunger, disease, and violence. We should not romanticize their lives, but we should not dismiss them either. They show us that other ways of being human are possible. They hold up a mirror to our own society and force us to ask difficult questions about our own health, our happiness, and our social structures. The greatest danger is that these societies are disappearing. Their lands are being taken. Their cultures are under threat from globalization, missionaries, and governments. When they disappear, we lose more than just a potential source of information about our past. We lose a part of our human diversity. We lose living libraries of knowledge about the natural world. We lose proof that humans can live in different and in some ways more sustainable ways. Learning from them means listening to them. It means respecting them as contemporary people with a right to their own land, their own culture, and their own future. It means understanding that their value is not just in what they can tell us about the past, but in who they are today. They are a vital part of the human story, a story that is still being written. And their voices and their knowledge are more important now than ever.